to start recording. Okay, let's get started, shall we? Hello, everyone, and welcome to tonight's event called Alternative Careers in Finance and Business Management. My name is Jabril Robinson. I'm an Assistant Director of Career Education in the BC Career Center and the lead coach of the Business Consulting Finance, or the BCF cluster for short. Also, I have the pleasure of being tonight's moderator. Little double whammy right there, love it. Whether you're tuning in from on campus or nearby the BC campus, whether you're out of state or perhaps outside the country, to which I might say good morning, perhaps in that sense. I hope each of you are in good health and spirits. And I thank each of you for tuning in and for joining us where I truly believe will be both an informative and a engaging discussion. A few quick housekeeping items to start, and then I'll introduce our panelists we have for this evening. First, if you have not already done so prior to joining, please go ahead and if you could take a few seconds, just a few seconds to formally register via this handshake link in the chat. Panelists, you don't have to, you're all set. If you could please take a second, register for that in the chat box, that'd be a big help. Secondly, this panel will run the length of just under approximately an hour. After some brief introductions, the first half will consist of a Q&A segment with our panelists that I'll be moderating, and the second half will be for you, the students, to share your own questions, whether they're directed to a specific panelist or to the panel as a whole to answer. So either way, it'll be important that you gain what you came here for and what you're most interested in this program. And so if and hopefully when you have questions, I ask that you type those in via the Q&A feature that's on the computer throughout the session. That's how the panelists and I will be able to see them come in, and we'll be able to get to them when we arrive at that stage. So curiosity and questions are welcome. Keep them coming for sure. So briefly, I'd like to provide some context regarding the nature of tonight's event. You'll notice that the title of this event leads with the word alternative, and it's definitely an intentionally used term, not meaning a backup plan or lesser than or a fallback option, right? Rather, I like to think of it, this term alternative careers with a sense of possibility. And yes, occupations that expand beyond the more commonly known, oftentimes glorified, yet remarkably misunderstood headlines of investment banking, management consulting, and the like. Fantastic careers for sure, fantastic careers. And yet, as you'll learn, these kind of careers that we'll feature for you tonight still entail an array of growth potential, learning and development opportunity, and core business skill development, which is just a few reasons why I'm sure our panelists love the work they do, probably despite and because all the hard and long hours they put in each day. They'll be able to share that with you. And really hope that their stories help expand our horizons on key opportunities and lessons in their respective fields and the world of finance and business more broadly. So that being said, please allow me the pleasure of formally introducing each of our panelists, and then we'll launch right into the questions and get into it. So I suppose I'll start with most senior on the team, Mr. Isaiah BienAime. Isaiah is currently a managing partner of Zapata Management and Marketing Group LLC, Reset Capital Partners LLC, and IBA Realty Capital. He has an eclectic mix of business ventures, which is by design and stems from doing what you're passionate about, with plans to start a new podcast soon. Definitely a podcast guy myself, so I got to hear all about that. Upon graduating from Boston College, class of 2014, where he majored in economics, Isaiah decided to enter the financial industry and was an investment analyst or associate at Common Fund. After leaving Common Fund, he took time off to further his real estate investment education experience, and then shortly joined JP Morgan Private Wealth Management for 2 years as an investment associate. He then realized his heart was really in entrepreneurship, building his own business and passive income, and the rest is history from there. I'm sure he'll be able to expand on that wonderful journey. While at Boston College, Isaiah was heavily involved in various organizations, including starting off as a freshman in the Hana Leadership Council's, ALC's, freshman program, also as a tour guide and a panelist, later a co-director in the Hana Caucus, and a part of other social justice programs on campus. Welcome, Isaiah. Next, we have Megan Vigliarolo. Megan is a senior client relationship manager at Prudential, responsible for driving new business and client engagement with Prudential's 50 largest institutional clients across 5 lines of business that she'll be able to detail. She also leads enterprise activities for the company's leadership, including directly supporting the CEO's client activities. Megan graduated in 2015 from BC with a degree in economics and mathematics. While at BC, she was the president of the BienAime Law Society and a member of the senior class gift committee. I'll also add that Megan informed me of a pretty cool story, a cross between somewhat happenstance and initiative that resulted in her landing her job at Prudential. So perhaps she'll share some insights with us throughout the conversation, particularly on the subject of networking and really putting yourself out there. I'm really excited for you all to learn about that. Next up, we have Lem Lim. Lem graduated from BC in 2016 and double concentrated in finance and operations management in Seesaw. Loving the excitement of student orgs on campus, he was involved in several clubs and held leadership and mentorship roles within the Philippine Society of Boston College, Asian Caucus, and the Hana Management Academy. During his junior year, fall semester, Lem studied abroad at Milan at Bocconi University. Even after indulging in great Italian pasta, oh, hungry Thursday, I already salivated myself. He said that he will always have a place in his heart for the mac and cheese served at the Rat. Yes. Lem currently resides in Boston and has been working at a healthcare-focused venture capital firm ever since graduating. And his role in the investment team has him regularly engaged with entrepreneurs developing solutions to address our most complex healthcare needs. And for the better part of 2020, that's been, you guessed it, COVID-19. We'll unpack a lot of that for sure during this session. Last but certainly not least, we have Danielle Potney. Danielle graduated from Boston College in 2018 with a degree in communication and a minor in management and leadership. Throughout her time at BC, she was a member of the Communications Honors Program, FIS, Emails Incorporated Sisterhood Through STEP, a Kairos retreat leader, and a house manager at the Rob Sham Theater. Her internship experiences throughout college were primarily in the retail and event management spaces, with internships at Bloomingdale's and Raffinelli Events. After graduating from Boston College, Danielle spent a year in Florida completing the Disney College program, working in the Magic Kingdom, a dream of hers since she was little. Since I'm currently little, future, awesome. Definitely thoughts go out to the tens of thousands of workers that were recently laid off from Disney. Still a magical place, maybe just slightly less for some people. After completing the Disney College program, Danielle found her way to AlphaSights, a global information services firm that specializes in knowledge search, after realizing that she wanted to apply her client-facing skills to a more business setting. She joined AlphaSights as an associate on their client services team and then transitioned over to the recruiting team, where she currently employs her passions for people and business strategy in a results-driven environment. Yes, yes, yes. I am excited already. A lot of different industries represented there, a really good eclectic mix. With that being said, I just want to say thank you so much, panelists, for taking the time to join us tonight for the conversation. Let's jump on into it. Again, for those of you attending, feel free to drop in your questions in the Q&A. I see a couple of them coming in already. Fantastic. We'll be able to get to those shortly. But with that being said, perhaps just to start out, building off these incredible bios that I've read, and of course your past, present, future long outweighs this bio as well. Love just to hear from our panelists, thinking about some of the pathways you took, starting from your BC experience, going through everything in the networking, the career discernment, the interviewing, all of that. Love to kind of hear just along your career origins and your career development, what would be 1 or 2 primary lessons that you learned along the way that you'd love to share with the audience first, just to kind of set the tone? Perhaps anyone could jump in. If not, I'd probably start reversed in the bio order. So Danielle, perhaps if you want to start, you all can fight for it.
Yeah, definitely. I can hop in. I think, as I reflect on my different experiences, my internship experiences, they can seem kind of vastly different. I've had internship experiences in retail. I've had internship experiences in event planning. And I think as I was navigating my job search, both during college and even post-grad, I think the thing that was really important to me was to really use those experiences as a learning experience and identifying what did I really enjoy about those roles and what might not have been the perfect fit or what was lacking from the roles. So really having a good understanding of, how did I get to where I am? What was I really hoping to achieve in that next role? And how could that next role help me either develop on those skills, develop on that role? So I think having a good understanding of your story, while you might have very different experiences, there are often common threads that you can find. And being able to communicate that story was certainly important for me throughout my time.
Thank you, thank you. Storytelling is important for sure. Who would like to go next?
I'll volunteer as a tribute, Jabril. So I was lucky enough to be able to intern in a few different roles and industries, and I interned at a small accounting firm, a law firm, and at a tax consulting firm. And after going through all of that, I realized I really wasn't interested in any of them as a career. And I know as a student, there's a lot of pressure to find out what you want to do, and it's overwhelming. But one of the helpful steps is to figure out first what you absolutely don't want to do in the first place. And secondly, I'm the youngest of three, and I also happen to be the youngest in my generation of cousins. So I was able to get a glimpse and ask my siblings and my cousins about the career paths. My sister's a surgeon. I knew medicine wasn't for me. My brother's a banker, and I thought, hey, that's more my style. So be working at the intersection of healthcare and finance is kind of an irony, but a welcome one. And so I think so often in the networking game, some people lose sight that their family is the first network that they were ever a part of. So definitely reach out to them for feedback and for guidance at whatever step of your career.
Great advice. I tend to forget myself, right? Those kind of LinkedIn first few connections and sometimes the ones that you're not connected with on LinkedIn. Your family, the people sitting right next to you or virtually next to you, sometimes can be your best resource. Excellent. All right. Megan or Isaiah would like to go next.
You want to go, Meg? Go ahead, Megan.
Yeah, sure. So like the other panelists, I've kind of had a different career path, kind of like Jabril mentioned, and I'll talk a little bit about it. So when I was at BC, I had a wealth management internship, but throughout my whole life, I always wanted to be a lawyer. So when I graduated, I went into a paralegal position at a big law firm in New York City, and then quickly realized that that's not what I wanted to do at all. And I took an exit opportunity into a compliance role at a hedge fund, and then quickly realized that that's not what I wanted to do at all. And I felt really stuck. And I actually met my current manager on the Amtrak to Boston, and I sat next to her for hours, and we were just talking about life, and she handed me her card. And I reached out to her, and over a period of a few months, she became my mentor, and I asked her a bunch of questions about different industries. And then when a role opened up on her team at Prudential, she wanted to hire me. And that's how I got my job now. And I've been working for her for 3 years. So I would say, kind of echoing what Lem said, that, when you're a student at BC, you kind of feel pressured to, make a decision on your career path and go the right way. And I remember thinking like, well, I don't even know what I wanted to do. I mean, I'm 26 years old and I still don't know what I want to do. But I think, using your network and building that will definitely always have an opportunity for there to be other opportunities down the line to reach out into your network and, leverage that. But also that, you'll hear all of us say, we've pivoted multiple times and you can do that. So don't be afraid to make a decision when you graduate and go into a certain role, because you can definitely pivot out of that.
Wonderful, thank you. Kind of right place, right time, but networking, it's the work in the networking as well. So I'm sure we'll unpack that a little bit more. Thank you so much for sharing. All right, Isaiah?
So yeah, I think what everyone shared, you kind of heard like a common theme about networking. And one thing I noticed is that you don't want to network when you have to network. You should always be networking. So when I got my first job out of college, I realized like I should have always been just having discussions with individuals, and it wasn't the moment where I was looking to pivot that's the moment to start networking. So you should always be networking with individuals and always just reaching out, having those informal discussions. Another constant theme that I heard that stuck with me as well is like remain open-minded and stay flexible. So we all, as Megan also mentioned as well, we all pivoted. And so you're not necessarily going to figure out what you want to do in your first job. So what I would say in order to help figure that out is, as you're going through these various experiences, write down what you like, write down what you don't like, and start paying attention to your passions, so that when you do end up, let's say, 2 to 3 jobs, or even if you stay in your first job, you could start aligning what you do and your passions. And then the last thing I would just say is just take a long-term perspective. And that also kind of aligns with remaining flexible. And so that will allow you to be able to pivot, to allow yourself to be like, okay, I don't like this, but I want to remain open to something else in terms of finding what I'm passionate about. So taking that long-term perspective, and then create goals and write down a plan of action. That's really important. One thing I noticed is that when I first got out of school, I had all these ideas in my head, but I wasn't writing anything down. And so I had no real sense of direction. So it's okay not to know what you don't want to do, but just set some short-term goals for yourself, that whether 3 months, 6 months to a year out. So that would be just my advice on that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I think those comments as a whole are so wonderful. Everything from the storytelling and creating and sharing and conveying your narrative in that sense, the storytelling. I meet with students on this all the time, and even an alumni as well, in this aspect of, as Jordan Harbinger always says, dig the well before you get thirsty. As far as networking goes, be as proactive, and not just in time of hunting an opportunity, but even kind of farming and cultivating those relationships is probably less pressure filled even at that earlier stage as well. So I thought those were all excellent points. Perhaps parlaying from that and think about, that skill in itself. Networking is a skill, right? Something everyone can learn, can develop, become more proficient in. We'd love to tie that in perhaps with your work today, right? In your different areas. I mean, we're covering everything here from venture capital, real estate and entrepreneurship, consulting, information services, insurance. And so thinking about, love to, if you could talk a little bit about like a high level overview of your work today. What is a typical day to day, even with COVID-19 in the mix, and particularly maybe with a focus on skill development, right? They always say that the skills that got you there, not get you here, not necessarily the ones that are going to take you there. But a lot of these skills we've even started talking about are really those, what I call evergreen skills. And so whether those be some of the more technical skills that you developed and you're continuously demonstrating in your work, or maybe some of those power skills, right? Like collaboration, project planning and management, negotiating, analytical, critical thinking. Love to hear more about the skills you're utilizing in your line of work. And if you could just share with our audience a little bit more of your typical day or week and what that looks like.
I guess since I was the last one to go, I could go first. I just want to I was trying to make a point before. So you mentioned the storytelling. And so I just want everybody to understand that one thing I've realized is that you almost have to treat yourself like a brand. And that's the reason why it's important for you to have that storytelling, so that people can connect with you and so that they can visualize in their own mind in regards to you being able to articulate what it is you're trying to convey. Now back to, so because I am a part of 3 different businesses that I'm a managing partner in, my days, and the reason why I talked about goal setting and having a plan of action is because I'm an entrepreneur. I don't necessarily go into the office every single day and have a boss telling me what my set schedule is. So it's very important for me to be very intentional and very thoughtful about how I'm allocating my time. So any typical day starts with client meetings, or I'll wake up in the day, I'll review like the Wall Street Journal, what's going on in the world, get caught up on my emails. And then after that, I pretty much have my day structured out between my various businesses. So if I have client meetings, I'll take care of the client meetings. In terms of research and development, I'll take care of that. So for example, for my real estate business, it's really revolved around understanding demographic trends, understanding where sellers are, and really building an automated system around my real estate process. For my other firm, which is a small business consulting firm, my day-to-day job is really about meeting with my various team members and for us to figure out how do we automate the solution that we've come up with in order to, what we do is automate, digitize, and grow small businesses. And then the third process, my third business that I'm a part of is I have a partner who's developed an artificial intelligence to look into the markets in terms of finding just different arbitrage opportunities. And so any typical day is really revolved around building spreadsheets and then also just meeting with investors. So what are the most important skills that I found that are most important, that I've also found universal across all three businesses is first and foremost is human relations. And that also kind of ties into even working in the corporate environment. Something that I realize is that people don't realize how hard it is to be able to interact with so many different personalities. And so your ability to keep your own composure and not let outer influences dictate how you respond to your environment is very key. That comes with experience, that just comes with being in different situations. So that's very important. Second thing for me is also being very organized and also I have a very analytical background. And then also I would say, the last thing I would say, just keeping my broad in scope in terms of what I'm interested in wide. So because I'm across three different businesses, the reason why I'm always reading the different papers or just reading different research reports, because it's important for me to just make sure that I'm constantly having an idea of where the market is going. And just surrounding yourselves with the smartest people. That's the last thing I'll say. So I kept mentioning my team. And the only reason why I can get all these various things done is because I can leverage other people around me. So it's very important to figure out where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then surround yourself with people who you can trust so that you can leverage. And so that synergistic effect allows me to focus on what I'm best at throughout the day, and everybody else delegates their tasks to what they're best at. So that's what I would kind of give my feedback there.
I love that. I love how you ended kind of with that BC, like those big questions, right? Big three questions. What am I good at, right? Where are my gaps and who can I surround myself with? Kind of resources? They say resourcefulness is the ultimate resource as far as people, places, and things around you. And so surround yourself with that talent, but definitely staying organized, intentional, kind of eyes on the prize each day, especially when you have a multitude of businesses or practices, clients, due diligence, etc. Easier said than done, but you make it sound really, that's amazing. Thank you, Isaiah. All right. Who'd like to share next with more of your day-to-day, maybe top priority skills that you utilize or developing?
I'll go next. So as Jabril said in the intro, I am a senior client relationship manager at Prudential. So my job is I sit at the center of our U.S. businesses across our 5 lines of business, which is asset management, retirement, group benefits, life insurance, and individual annuities. And my job is to manage and retain the revenue of the 50 largest clients of Prudential. So that's across financial institutions, technology partners, and global consultants. And on my team, which is called Prudential Client Management, I cover financial institutions, so like Goldman Sachs, UBS, JP Morgan, and I cover our large technology partners, so like your Googles, Amazon, and Microsoft. And my job is to, I guess in so many words, it's so hard to describe. My job is to be the expert on those clients for our senior leaders and our business units across the firm. So my job is to know the client so well that I can see the opportunity a year from now or 5 years from now, depending on what they're doing in the market and what they're doing with their clients, and to tie that back into Prudential's overall firm strategy. So my day-to-day, it's really about relationships. So honestly, my day-to-day is I'm on phone calls or now video calls all day with internal business partners across our business units to find out what's going on with the client down at their level, talking to our clients to find out, opportunities or to bring together certain groups within our clients and our internal businesses to have more conversations, whether it's, building product together, whether it might be a service issue with something that we already have distributed to that client. It could be absolutely anything. And then I also run strategic projects for our leadership in our executive office. So I'm pulling together research reports on what's happening in the market or briefings for client meetings for our leadership. And I would say for me, the skills that I see I utilize the most are less, analytical, less technical, like using Excel or modeling. It's more, I I guess like collaboration and navigating our organization. You know, Prudential has over 50,000 employees, and my job is to roll in everyone's information up to the center. So it's really navigating like who are the right people to go to, what do I need, who has what information. And then also while we're working on strategic projects like putting together a client briefing for the CEO, you know, it's really collaborating across the company to hone in all that information and put it together. So, you know, working across multiple different groups at once. So I would say those are most the skills that I use on a day-to-day basis.
But everything I hear for sure, those rudimentary and those foundational business skills, I'm hearing like business acumen, business savvy, something that Isaiah was saying, be very organized and intellectually curious as well, to be able to learn so much about products, services, be able to build those relationships. You have to have understanding, be able to kind of relate to clients.
Yeah, and it's a lot of it's also like project management too.
Exactly. Ooh, you made my job look easy. My goodness. Lem or Danielle, if you'd like to share.
I guess I'll go. So HLM, my firm, has a pretty small investment team. It's 5 investing partners and a CFO and myself. I'm the only one in my 20s. So overall, I'm responsible for a lot of the deal sourcing, portfolio management, and I run the diligence process on a lot of our potential investments. And so on a typical day, it's usually a mixture of meetings and calls with partners, companies that are pitching to us, and knowledge experts and other professionals. And so outside those meetings, I'm usually reading a lot of diligence materials, running models, and preparing investment memos. So obviously the pitch meetings are the exciting part. Like that's what I wake up for. And the large amounts of reading are just remedies for insomnia, honestly. And I think my takeaways is, you know, just hammer it down a third time. I would say conversational skills are a no-brainer here. Some days are filled with calls and meetings, and so listening, asking questions, and being fully engaged are key. Preparation and time management are also essential too. You're not doing yourself, the other people that you're meeting with, and definitely like your own personal brand and your company a favor if you walk into some place, you know, cold and unprepared. And I recognize that these days the majority of us are working and studying remotely, and so we're deprived of those spontaneous interactions with friends and coworkers on campus and in the office. So make that effort to really stay connected and to even reconnect with others. So there's also a way for you to build up your own networking skills and for you to maintain your own network and get acclimated to being in that kind of contact.
Excellent, thank you. I think that's something students have been very curious about. A lot of my conversations is, you know, in this virtual realm that we live in, how to really kind of create that kind of rapport, how to, like you just mentioned, like being spontaneous, creative, really build those strong relationships, that extra barrier that's there. So I'm glad you allude to that. I'm sure that's something students will have some questions about as well. Thank you. And last but not least, Danielle, if you'd like to share a little bit about your skills day to day.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess I can talk about my 2 roles because I actually had 2 roles at AlphaSights. So I joined AlphaSights as a member of their client services team. But I guess to give a little insight into what AlphaSights is for anybody that might not have heard of AlphaSights in the past. So what we are is we're an information services firm. And what we do is we connect our clients who come from a variety of different spaces. Our clients come from like corporations, capital markets, private equity, consultancies. We'll connect them with industry advisors that can ultimately help them make more informed decisions. So in that role, I was acting as that connecting point or that liaison between our clients and those industry experts that can ultimately help them make a more informed decision. So what my day looked like was really, you know, doing research, but at a really high level to get a good understanding of these different industries that my clients were exploring. And then I would go about, you know, identifying different experts and really honing in on my professional communication as I was engaging with C-suite executives in a variety of different industries on a pretty regular basis. So really honing in on those professional communication skills, but also those critical thinking skills as I was then, you know, circling back to my client to make a recommendation on who I thought would be best placed to kind of fill that gap for them. So similarly to Megan, I wasn't necessarily using a lot of those like technical analytical skills. So I wasn't necessarily in like Excel all day or, you know, utilizing those hard skills, but more so really utilizing my soft skills. So really developing my commercial acumen. You know, I worked on projects in so many different industries, so many different spaces, which was really appealing to me. But I also had never, you know, had exposure to the agriculture space before my time at AlphaSights. So really being able to develop my commercial acumen and my professional communication was really important. I developed other skills like negotiation and sales in the role as well. and then kind of transitioning to my current role where I'm a campus recruiter. So it's a little different, but it's still definitely a client-facing role in which I'm using my interpersonal skills, my communication skills, but more so focusing on, campus strategy and recruitment strategy, and being able to being a liaison between AlphaSights and our schools that we're able to connect with. Kind of honing in on, campus recruitment, candidate evaluation, that coordination and operations piece as well is kind of what my day-to-day looks like. So again, kind of utilizing more of those interpersonal, those soft skills in this role as well.
Fantastic. I'm hearing a lot of patterns between these. Again, very disparate, very different industries, but all those, again, foundational skills, people skills, be creative, be analytical or process detail oriented in that regard. I think those are, seem obvious, but when you have it, and when it's lacking as well, for sure. Thank you all for sharing. I think that's very insightful. Which makes me think too, again, given the world that we're operating right now, and different individuals. I know you all over the Northeast as well, and think of for individuals that either might be currently working in a virtual role or maybe seeing what 2021 looks like, who knows, due to COVID, is, interviewing or pursuing opportunities that might look a little bit different than maybe pre-COVID in that sense. And so a couple of my questions from there are going to kind of build towards that. First being, thinking about the workplace atmosphere. Would love to hear anything you think would be beneficial to share with students regarding your current work now and how maybe since March or so, maybe how that work has shifted. Any changes at your organization, whether that be technology, operations, protocol, certain things that you as an individual, maybe personally, professionally, had to adjust to really, survive, if not thrive in this kind of setting that we're in. Would love to maybe hear that. And then if it's applicable as well, it's been incredible just hearing the multitude of ways companies have gone to support employees or support communities in this time of instability, uncertainty, crisis. So if applicable, I'd love to maybe hear as well, anything that your respective organization has done to support employees such as yourselves, or maybe even aspects that you've advocated for, or maybe as an entrepreneur have taken to take care of yourself during this time. I know it's kind of a long question, kind of take that as you will, but I thought that'd be a cool topic to address.
I'll start. So in terms of like what's changed since COVID happened, I'd say at Prudential, we're all remote unless we were deemed an essential worker. So for me, what's changed is the only aspect is, I used to go visit clients at their home offices and I can't anymore. So everything's virtual. But one thing that changed probably for the better is that every single meeting we have, even if it's internal, is now over video, and that never used to be the case. It used to either be in person or on a phone call, and everyone, since Prudential's kind of spread out around the Northeast, it used to just be a phone call. So it's kind of nice. I feel like there's a lot of relationships I've built over the past 3 years on simply over the phone, and now I've finally seen people's faces, which is like weird to say. But I think that's where I see things going in the long term. I know Prudential's talking about shutting down some offices full time now that they're realizing we can work remotely. And I'd say, Prudential has been around for like 150 years, so they're a bit behind when it comes to letting people work remotely or having more flexible schedules. And I think they're just starting to notice that. And we've been implementing more technology like Microsoft Teams and Cisco WebEx so that we, have all these collaboration tools. And then in terms of Prudential supporting our employees, I'd say the biggest thing I've noticed is a lot of discussions from leadership about our wellness. And they've put a lot of money and to create incentives for us to like be well. And we now have this Be Well portal talking about, taking a minute to breathe, taking a minute to go for a walk, taking surveys and learning about, mental health, physical health. And that's something that they've implemented since COVID.
Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. Excellent. Anyone else?
I'm happy to jump in as well. So when COVID kind of unfolded in March, our leadership team really acted really quickly and we transitioned to a work from home environment. We've been really fortunate to have like a really great tech team that equipped us with truly all of the like necessary equipment to effectively and efficiently do our work from home. They're truly amazing. I'll message them and, you'll get a response that will respond in under 5 minutes. I don't think I've ever waited more than 2 minutes, which is greatly appreciated on my end because I'm not the most tech savvy person. But they've been like super responsive, which has been super helpful. I think when you think about like what the main difference is, we're not sitting right next to our coworkers. So that piece of like, how do you maintain that open communication? How do you maintain that collaboration? And also, how do you maintain that sense of community as well? We've been able to do that through things like hopping in a Google Hangout or, via Slack, via email. But then the piece of how do you maintain that tight sense of community as well? For context, I actually transitioned over to the recruiting team in the midst of COVID. There are individuals on my team that I've never actually met in person, but I feel like I've been working with them for like years. And I think that just goes to show like how truly important our people are at AlphaSights and like still maintaining that sense of community. So, hopping in Google Hangouts pretty regularly to connect. In person, we would typically have like monthly team events, and being able to transition that to like a virtual environment. So my team had like a few months ago, we had like a virtual improv event. So still just being able to maintain that sense of community as well, even in this virtual environment, has been like really important. And then thinking about how it's kind of affected our business, it's been kind of interesting to see how relevant, AlphaSights does remain to companies as they're experiencing economic shifts or they're experiencing shock. They're still looking for individuals to help them navigate that. And we're able to connect them with experts to ultimately help them make those more informed decisions. So our associates have even had the opportunity to work on a variety of COVID-related projects as well, which has certainly been like fascinating and interesting for them to be able to kind of work on those different projects with their clients, kind of navigating those situations. But that's kind of how, COVID has changed a little bit. I think the main difference is, not being in the office, not being able to sit right next to your coworkers, but still being able to maintain that sense of collaboration, teamwork, and community, even in this virtual environment.
Definitely connection here between yours and Megan's statements that the community can still be there. It might take a little bit more work, right, and more initiative in that sense. But that's the beauty of the technology systems that we have to be able to kind of make that effort as well. Easier said than done, but I think it's so critical. Thank you. Isaiah or Lem, anything to add from your ends? Any workplace changes or kind of Isaiah, you're bouncing all over in real estate as well. You do more virtual meetings with clients or moving around just as much?
I can go. As for us, we're fully remote. We're actually letting our lease run out in November, and we're not in a rush to sign for new space, but I'll keep you in mind, Isaiah. I don't think we'll see the typical 5-day work week in the office anymore. Back in March, when we all first started working remotely, for the most part, I think we all saw it as a benefit because we could be sleeping instead of commuting. But we've learned that this constantly evolving, new normal has its own set of challenges. And the biggest challenge is that work from home has kind of blurred the lines on when, work is done. So wellness has definitely been one of our priorities internally. So we're lucky that we have portfolio companies that complement their solutions for us. And just to set expectations here, there's obviously vaccine talks every day, and of how companies are making progress here. Development cycles on these are extensive, and distribution is a different beast all on its own. And so from the conversations I've had, I would anticipate us working at least majority virtual for at least another year or two. So I hope wherever you are, you got a good work setup. And who knows, maybe employers will start giving out stipends for that down the road to new employees.
Fingers crossed. Yes, absolutely.
So I would just say that COVID actually accelerated one of my business opportunities. So when, as I mentioned, in terms of just kind of staying abreast of like where the world is going. So everybody hears of like mega trends, and we hear about the digital transformation of just business models, of how consumers interact with different businesses. So when I quit my job at JP Morgan in January, February, not that I had any foresight into COVID, but what I really want to do is provide like strategy consulting services to small businesses. So pretty much like a growth strategist. And what I realized was that once COVID hit, the need Well, number one, e-commerce, we know that trend was occurring. That trend was accelerated by a lot of years. And then the need for small businesses to operate on digital platforms also accelerated as well. So if everyone noticed, we're talking about being virtual. So if you think about it, your first interaction with the business occurs online, so website interface, et cetera. And so in terms of this shift to digital transformation, a lot of large businesses have the resources, as you can see, to quickly adapt to a new environment where you actually have to, you can't be in the office. They have the resources, they have the capital in order for them to fully digitize their businesses or really cause a digital transformation of their businesses. Now, a lot of small businesses don't have that same luxury. So COVID accelerated one of the business opportunities that I'm actually working on, which is really focused on the 20 employee to smaller size businesses, because of how we're going to interact with individuals going forward. And COVID just accelerated the digital transformation of the world. Everything is moving online. And so a lot more of how we interact with each other is all occurring online as well. So that's just kind of a plug I'd give.
That's excellent. I think that's one of the key words of, these past few months that we've been, as far as acceleration, whether that be acceleration in terms of higher education, in terms of retail, e-commerce, real estate in different areas. It's been interesting how it's changed everything, and in some cases has changed nothing at the same time, as far as the course of certain things that they're heading. Definitely I spent a lot of my time as well in diversity, equity, inclusion in the Career Center, really talk about as far as, inequities and how even COVID-19 has really further entrenched inequities we see regarding even the workplace in that sense, as far as, women to male ratio now permanently being out of the workforce, whether it be in terms of unemployment across racial lines, certainly generational gaps in that sense. And so I think it's so important that when we think, the new normal, also we think about the new forward in that sense, and how can we utilize these technologies, these tools, these resources that we have at our disposal to also create a better place in that sense. But I would say it's probably not get too lost in the sauce as well too. I speak for myself that, when researching the trends and the industries and all it's overwhelming how much is out there, which makes me think, I'd love if you have any thoughts, and this will probably be, at least before we maybe turn, see if there are any questions. One of my final questions, which is for students that are navigating this crazy world and they're looking at job postings, they're reading industry newses, the Wall Street Journals, looking at Morning Brew, looking at, so many different boards. How, I guess, for you all, how do you stay current, and tips for students to remain connected, remain knowledgeable, grow knowledge in these respective industries, but also stay sane at the same time, right? There's a difference between information and then knowledge to be able to kind of sit from that. How do you kind of make sense of all the different headlines and all the different opportunities out there to stay sane in this process? Any tips you could offer for students right now that are currently searching for internships, full-time opportunities? I know it was a big question.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. Yeah. Sorry. I'm making sense of all of my long question, I'll say. Just long story short, for students that are in these stages of recruitment, right, and they're learning about career opportunities, they're applying for all these different internships and, competitive processes and such, what are recommendations you'd offer for students to be able to stay current, stay in the, stay energized in these processes, but also stay sane and take care of themselves at the same time, essentially?
I would say in terms of understanding the process and understanding the rules you're actually applying to, because I remember when I was a junior and a senior and I was looking at wealth management, I'm like, well, what really is wealth management? What am I doing day to day? And I think even this now, as we're talking about networking, I think one of the biggest pieces of advice I would give is to reach out to your network or reach out to BC alumni who might be in roles that you're interested in doing, and ask us questions. Ask us what our day-to-day is like. Ask us what our career paths have been so far, similar to these conversations. So you can get a better idea of what it's going to be like post-grad or what really is out there. Because I'll even tell you, I didn't know what an annuity was going into my job now. And now I'm like, have to be an expert on our annuity products. But why would I? I'm not like a 50-year-old person retiring. But I feel like you're always learning, and it's really hard to be in a position in that stage going through the internship programs or, full-time job recruiting and trying to wrap your head around like, what is it that you want to do and what is the job you're actually applying to. So I would just, for me, I would say my biggest, resource to get that knowledge was talking to people who are in the industry or talking to people who are in the roles I was interested in.
Thanks, Megan. Any other advice for students currently exploring, interviewing, recruiting, etc.?
Just to go off of Megan, obviously it was talking with your network, utilize all those connections that you have, but also just read, caffeinate and read. I'm subscribed to a few newsletters and distribution lists. So for VCPE, Term Sheet is a great resource. I'm also subscribed to The Hustle for more general news that is presented in kind of a fun and more digestible way than you would expect from the Wall Street Journal or New York Times. So, and I would just also say keep an eye out for companies that you're also interested in and look at their media, since they also provide industry and market specific insights in case you have interests within that company work in that capacity.
And then to add to that, I would say BC has a lot of resources as well. So to be honest with you, I reached out to the BC library because so for example, as an entrepreneur, a lot of what you need is government data or just a lot of big data. And so for me, because I'm not working at JP Morgan anymore, that's like you could get subscription services, but BC has a lot of industry resource data researches, reports, and just different services that a lot of institutions where I worked at previously, BC has access to those. So like I'm actually on BC's research website, like the BC library, almost every day because I have to do a lot of consumer research. So I'm on just those different platforms. I would also say whether you just want to read the Wall Street Journal, again, you don't need to read it cover to back. You could just read one or two things that you're interested in. One thing I noticed was that you can start small. So like reading or anything you're interested in, it's like, even though I'll run marathons, it's like running a marathon. So like, for example, when I first graduated college, I was reading I just wasn't reading as much. So let's say I was reading a book every 4 months. Now I'm reading like a book a week, but it takes time in progressing. So I think of my mind as like, one thing I say is that the more I read, Albert Einstein kind of said like, what is it? There's eighth wonder of the world. I forget what it is compound interest. But the more and more you read, that's how you compound more information. But don't read. That's why you want to figure out what you're passionate about, because then you're reading information that you're interested in. So it doesn't feel like a chore, hopefully. And then you can align what you're actually reading in. So stay flexible as well. Remain open-minded because if you told me I would be where I am today when I first graduated from BC, like I was literally on track to just be a portfolio manager, and that just wasn't for me. So, but if I didn't remain open-minded and flexible, I wouldn't have been able to say, you know what, like what else is out there for me? And that's how I kind of figured out where I wanted to go. So in this environment, I would just say, read what you're interested in, as they mentioned as well, the other panelists, and just continue to network, leverage your alumni associations, and just figure out what you're interested in. A good blog is called Farnham Street. That's one that is like really good, that I leverage. And it's all about like, how do you become a lifelong learner? How do you continue to innovate as an individual, especially with technology? One thing I would say to all of you is something I think about is when you're thinking about what you want to do for the rest of your life, it's just because we're in the fourth industrial revolution. You just have to always think, what are the technological implications for the current career that I'm entering in? And you can just type in Google, like careers that are going to be affected by technology, and Deloitte, McKinsey reports will come up, and you could get a sense of like where the world is heading, just so that, again, when you want to think out 5 to 10 years in advance, so that you can protect yourself and your careers.
I would just like to also add on top of that, something that I feel like most people wouldn't think about, but utilize the professors. And I know that sounds strange, but I had he was my, what's it called? Like my counselor, or the person I'm assigned to in the econ department. But he was my professor senior year, and he actually got me, I went and I spoke to him about jobs. I had no idea what I wanted to do. And he got me an interview with one of his friends at like his friend's company that he was starting. And you know, I would have never expected that. And that's one of the things I look back at and I kind of regret with BC, is that like I didn't go to office hours more and I didn't build relationships with professors, and where I am now in my career, I kind of wish I had them as part of my network. So just another thought.
Yeah, I would definitely echo that. Definitely like utilize your professors, you know, a conversation with them, just having a conversation about what they've done in their work. And I think even just in general, building that relationship with them and being able to talk to them, they have a vast amount of like knowledge and experience. And even just having that like conversation, you're able to learn a lot from that as well. I know that I developed like really close relationships with my professors, and it was through them that I was kind of taking that risk of going down to Disney and doing the college program. Is something that I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to do. And it was through those conversations with my professors that, you know, really solidified my decision to go down there. But I also think be open to like opportunities as well, and say yes to things, whether that's if you're in a student organization and you get like a leadership position, or you get offered like a project, like say yes, because that project might spark something that you're really interested in that you didn't even know you were interested in before you were working on that. So I think the more that you can say yes to the different opportunities that you're presented with, the better, because you'll be able to learn more about yourself, what you're interested in, and kind of what the path that you might want to pursue down the line is as well.
On the say yes, I would just recommend the book The Alchemist. It kind of like when you said that, it kind of just like went off in my head. Just say yes, remain open-minded, and keep doing things.
I know my reading list has expanded as a result of this. I got my next steps tonight for sure. Just kind of connected those threads, right? Being open-minded, say yes with intentionality, be resourceful, talk with your network. So that'd be faculty. We talked earlier, family, others as well. You never know what they know. Using industry-specific guides as such too, whether you're in VC, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether, you know, in a consultant or business, insurance, finance sense. So really just being curious to that degree. I think that's all wonderful advice that us as adults, we need to continue doing that as well. There's a little bit stalling right there too as well, just to see if there are any questions coming up using the Q&A. If you have not yet, feel free to throw in a question or so for our panelists. If not, I'll probably have a question or so to end, but definitely want to, if you have any questions, it's your time to get them answered. Love to address any of your questions or curiosity. Maybe while we wait on any of those as they trickle in, just sort of thinking about, you know, for you all too, getting towards next steps. You know, you've offered amazing, insightful advice and encouragement, despite and because of the circumstances that we're in, or really just in general, to kind of navigating the business world. We'd love to see if you have any last advice, and something I'm a fan of in my coaching practice and my programs, my panels, is really, you know, I'm a big champion for, you know, the underdog in that sense. It's very intentional when I recruit for programs and events as well, whether that be people of color, whether it be, you know, non-CSOM students in MCAS, or sorry, non-CSOM students in business careers, kind of, can I do this? I'm not from that major or background, women and predominantly male work environments, first gen individuals. And so we'd love to hear any kind of closing thoughts you might have as far as any additional advice to underrepresented, underserved students, candidates, as far as their career development, to have a positive experience throughout the process or in the workplace itself. Do you have any kind of last kind of closing words around that element?
I think a lot of my thoughts here are, you know, just very general, easier said than done things, but it's nothing that, you know, none of us have never heard before. Obviously, work hard, stay humble, and be hungry to learn. All those things, and be all those things and more, to the point where someone can't ignore you. And if you're assuming employment in the U.S., there are select firms and even whole industries that seem, I guess you say, allergic to diversity. And a lot of people notice that, and they may immediately dismiss those industries, industries that may hold great opportunity, and they walk away, telling themselves it's not, you know, probable or possible. But I would argue that many of us here are descendants of immigrants, courageous and ambitious all-stars. And I'm sure none of us would be here if they thought that making a life for themselves here was not probable or possible. And so don't be afraid to be that first person on foreign shores. And I challenge you to see like where there is uncertainty, dare to see opportunity.
I would say to Lem's point, especially in the corporate world, myself, I wouldn't say I got discouraged, like I was working my way up getting promoted, but I just realized that being a person of color, there was just other obstacles. And me personally, I didn't want to play the politics. But one thing I would say is that leverage LinkedIn, because one thing I didn't realize is that I've been connecting with so many different successful minorities who I didn't even know of. And it just opened up my mind just in general to the plethora of just successful minorities. So like leverage LinkedIn, shoot somebody a DM, and you'd be surprised how many people will accept your request and like get back to you. And then the only other two things I would leave, and I kind of touched upon it earlier, but you know, in 2 studies, they said again, one of the biggest determinants of long-term success is having a long-term perspective. And then they did a study of like Yale graduates, and they tracked them. And they said that for Yale graduates of a graduating class, those that had a plan, only 3% had a plan of action and written down, and those 3% of Yale grads outperformed or were more successful than the rest of everyone else. And so the reason why I bring this up is because for me personally, what I realized is when I wasn't writing things down or didn't have a plan of action, it's almost like you're kind of driving without a GPS. Like you have no target. You're just kind of going anywhere. Life will take you anywhere. So unless you have a plan of action, you're intentional and just have a sense of where you want to go towards, that's how you end up and meet your goals and targets. So those are like the 3 things I would leave.
Fantastic. Actionable, inspiring, but so important. You got to have the GPS for where you're going. If you know the ultimate destination, you still need to have something that's moving you along in a informed direction for sure. Excellent. Any last closing words, anyone else? Don't think we received any. We had a question come in, which is basically, can I get in touch with them after the panel? So if I can maybe share your contact information afterwards, that's appropriate. But looks like students definitely want to continue the conversation.
I would just like to add, like obviously from my story from the beginning, like utilize your network. I think that's, you know, your biggest tool in your career, beyond your skills. And take initiative. Like if you get an internship or you get a job, like raise your hand for projects and like show that you want to be there. Because in my experience with new hires we've had on my team or within the company, like those are the people who truly stood out to me, and who I will think of to hire. In fact, there was a girl at BC who was on my executive board, who kept in touch with me over the years, and she was 2 years younger. I think she was class of 2017. And when I started in my role now and a role opened up on my team, I thought of her to hire her, and we actually hired her onto my team. So like you'll stick in people's minds if you're, you know, one of those hardworking people who take initiatives. And I would just say that. And I would say, like, for the women who are listening, you know, it is like, for me, it's always been a super male dominated role, even in my role now. But, you know, like build that network with other women, whether, you know, at the same level as you or seniors, and, you know, really find your ally who can pull you up. Because I'd say for me, if it wasn't for my manager, I wouldn't be where I am today, and I wouldn't have been promoted as many times as I have. And I think it's important to find those people who like want to take you along for the ride. And I feel like for women, it's always important to find that, you know, that woman ally to take you along.
Yeah, going off of that as well, I would say, you know, echoing like all of the things that have been said, but really utilize your network and look for that mentor too within, you know, kind of echoing Megan. I found really great mentors in my managers, like truly have been able to have like really open conversations about kind of where I saw my career going. And it was through those mentorship opportunities that I was able to really identify, you know, what am I really passionate about? So I think seeking out those mentors and continuing to network as well.
Excellent. I think that leads to really great last words of inspiration in that sense. You know, that kind of point of, you know, find people that can pull you up, like you said, Megan, take you along for the ride in that sense. And so you could do an intern for others as well. As they say, lift as you climb. That's always important, but particularly now in these times, more important than ever, regardless of particular path or company or area you're looking at. I think it's the humane thing to do in that sense. So I think that was very beautifully articulated, all of you. With that being said, let's start any final questions. Thank you, panelists, for sharing out your contact information. I'm sure I can speak for all you when I say students definitely do so. All the panelists are highly responsive with me getting back, and who am I, right? So definitely with you all, definitely reach out. Sure, I'd love to continue the conversation and let you know a little bit more about their work, day-to-day work life, things like that. With that being said, I see we're a little bit past the hour. Thank you all for being flexible. I would love if everyone could give a virtual round of applause perhaps to the panelists, taking some time this evening to share, their stories, expertise, advice, enthusiasm on this late night. And so I hope everyone had a good time, learned a thing or two. I know I certainly did. And with all events such as these, if you'd like to learn more, further the conversation, all these panelists, again, can be found, just as was mentioned earlier, on LinkedIn, Eagle Exchange as well, BC's online mentorship and networking platform. I'm sure they would not mind reaching out to you. There are others beyond this. And also too, make sure you continue to follow the Business Consulting Finance biweekly newsletter to hear of opportunities such as this. I post opportunities like this all the time there. There's an event coming up next month that you might be interested in on November 10th that evening called Do Well, Do Good Careers in Business. Soon we'll be on Handshake. You're here for a number of alumni, exceptional alumni in social impact roles, organizations in business. Again, a topic that's more relevant today than ever. So with that being said, I want to thank each of you for attending tonight's panel on alternative careers in finance and business management. Programs like these would not be possible and certainly would not be successful without your interest, your energies, and your questions. So we really appreciate that. So on behalf of the Career Center, I wish all of you well and make sure you take care until next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, Jabril.